Over the past half-century, we have tended to look back and say that Vietnam and the Watergate scandal marked the end of America's innocence, when a pointless war and a moral failing led us into cynicism and despair. In doing so, we forget that America really lost its innocence more than a half-century earlier, when World War I and the Black Sox scandal of 1919 forced us to see the world in a light we never wanted. This is why John Sayles' 1988 film 8 Men Out is the best of all baseball movies. There are other great and endearing baseball films, of course, most of them light and fun, ranging from The Bad News Bears to Bull Durham to The Sandlot to A League of Their Own to Major League. More dramatic offerings include Pride of the Yankees, Moneyball, and The Natural. What sets 8 Men Out apart from them all is the importance of the message, of what baseball meant and how its corruption on the heels of the Great War led to Hemingway's Lost Generation and a feeling that we may go on, but that we will never look at the world in the same way again. F. Scott Fitzgerald captured it first in his 1925 novel, The Great Gatsby, featuring a fictionalized version of Arnold Rothstein, the infamous gambler who allegedly financed the scheme by which members of the Chicago White Sox purposefully lost the World Series to the Cincinnati Reds. The character, Meyer Wolfsheim, is an associate of Gatsby's. He is introduced by Gatsby to Nick Carraway, the novel's narrator. Carraway asks Gatsby who Wolfsheim is, and Gatsby tells him that Wolfsheim is the man who fixed the 1919 World Series. Nick reflects that, quote, "It never occurred to me that one man could start to play with the faith of 50 million people with the single-mindedness of a burglar blowing a safe," end quote. It perfectly captures the idea of destroying the trust that America's population put into the national pastime, especially considering what the institution meant for the country, and for what? The opportunity to make a quick buck. Crucially, Sayles opens the film with children going from a Sandlot baseball game to Comiskey Park to see the White Sox play. The small boys see baseball as a game played by godlike heroes, and their purity is beyond question. But their heroes are just men, as flawed, corruptible, and susceptible to temptation as anyone else. Here, Sayles takes dramatic license with the facts to get to a larger truth. The writer-director must craft a film narrative from the history, and the truth of what really happened in September and October of 1919 is not totally clear. Sox owner Charles Comiskey had a reputation for being cheap, but the team that year was the highest paid in the American League. Their stars were well compensated compared to peers, and pitcher Eddie Cicotte, central to the plan to throw the series, was the second highest paid pitcher in the league behind Walter Johnson. All of the figures central to the scandal made at least 3 to 4 times the yearly salary of the American worker. The truth makes it difficult to understand why the players did it, but in the end, the allure of matching or potentially doubling their yearly salary by dumping the World Series proved too much to resist, and the decision was made easier by the sport's long-standing connection to gambling and fixed games, something well documented in Elliot Azenon's book 8 Men Out, on which the film is based. Sayles, in spinning a narrative, cannot rely on ambiguity and speculation. He needs a villain, and Comiskey, with his reputation for parsimony, fits the bill. The players feel disrespected and cheated, providing them with a clear motive. It bends history to a degree, but it does not alter the truth that players did take money, the ultimate corrupting influence, to throw the World Series. The script is tight and there is not a wasted moment. The first 20 minutes expertly introduce all of the characters central to the story as the Sox win the game that clinches them the American League pennant. We get the players and their opposing cliques, Comiskey, the sports writers who ultimately discover and publicize the scandal, and the gamblers who see an opportunity for sure money. The baseball played on the field is as believable as in any other baseball film, and Charlie Sheen as center fielder Happy Felsch and D.B. Sweeney as the legendary shoeless Joe Jackson clearly have athletic talent. David Strathairn as Cicotte and James Reed as Lefty Williams are passable as pitchers. The sequences that show them deliberately making mistakes to lose games are well staged, and we relate especially to the frustration of third baseman Buck Weaver, played by John Cusack. If Comiskey, here played by Clifton James, is the villain, then Weaver is the hero, the player caught in an impossible situation. He knows what his teammates are up to, wants no part of it, yet he is caught up in the gears and destroyed. Sayles shows Weaver interacting with the young boys from the beginning, and he is still clearly a boy who never really grew up, something that he states himself. He represents all of us, and he is undone by his naivete. Sayles gives us Shoeless Joe in all of his complexity. A natural ball player, he is illiterate and has no street smarts at all. He is manipulated by everyone around him. Jackson, in real life, signed a confession that he participated in the scheme, but there is speculation that he was manipulated by team executives and lawyers to do so. In the film, he is depicted as a vulnerable and confused rube who signs his confession with a simple X. Ultimately, the players are treated worse by the gamblers and even one of their own than they are by Comiskey, cheated out of most of the money promised to them. No one, save Cicotte, who demanded $10,000 up front as the team's ace, and first baseman Chick Gandil, the Sox ringleader who secretly allotted himself $35,000, ended up with more than $5,000. Ironically, if they had simply beaten the overmatched Reds honestly, each player's winning World Series share would have been $5,207. The Byzantine nature of the scheme is best shown in a sequence in a Cincinnati hotel, as Sox manager Kid Gleason informs Comiskey of his suspicions, and Comiskey then goes to inform longtime nemesis and league president Dan Johnson, who does not believe him. They pass gamblers and players, with all walking the labyrinthine hallways and ducking into rooms. In the end, the players try to revolt and protest and attempt to win the series, but a threat by gamblers against the wife of Williams, a historical detail that's debated, leads the pitcher to lose the game that hands Cincinnati the series. For the sake of narrative, Sayles shows news of the scheme being broken quickly by reporters, leading to an indictment and trial. In reality, the players participated for most of the 1920 season before being suspended by Comiskey as the indictment approached. The detail is interesting only in that all players, save Weaver, received significant raises after the 1919 season. The irony of a winning World Series share and the raises rendering the fraud unnecessary in the end is heartbreaking. Although the players received a not guilty verdict at trial, the man hired as an all-powerful commissioner, Kennesaw Mountain Landis, ruled 8 members of the Sox permanently ineligible because of their involvement with gamblers in an effort to restore integrity to the sport. Whether true or apocryphal, the boy imploring Shoeless Joe to say it ain't so outside the courthouse says everything about the story. Demigods are proven to be flawed and weak mortals, and we realize that nothing, not even the institution of baseball, fueled by the passion and trust of children, is safe from corruption and scandal. This is America's coming-of-age story, and Sayles gives it to us in beautiful, heartbreaking fashion. We lost our innocence through the very pastime symbolizing that innocence. Current baseball commissioner Rob Manfred removed the 8 players from the permanent ineligible list this past spring, ruling that being on the list ends with the player's death. The last of the Black Sox, Cicotte, died in 1969. His misdeeds and those of his teammates haunted all of them long after death, and they haunt us still.